Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is LaKeesha Hines, and you are watching the Firestarter Show. I am not in my usual studio tonight. It's because I am celebrating my baby girl's 10th birthday. I cannot believe that little lady is 10. It's like so exciting. So, we decided to surprise her with a trip to Disney. It's her first time going to Disney. And so, man, what an amazing weekend we're going to have. And you all pray for me because you already know what theme parks are like. So, we're going to dive right in. Tonight, we're talking about relationship expectations. And I want you to let me know where you're streaming from. Drop in your questions. As always, feel free to drop in comments. Something resonates with you, but definitely make sure you let me know where you're streaming from. And for those of you who are catching the replay, guess what? You can always go over to my social media and you can always post comments there. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. You can always watch the replay. And when you do, put comments right there in the replay. So make sure you let me know exactly again what's on your mind and what resonates with you from this topic. So again, tonight we're talking about relationship expectations, and we have many different ways that we can approach this topic, but I'm going to focus primarily on marriage. But it doesn't matter if you're married or not, because there's still expectations that you should have. Expectations are completely normal, they are healthy, and everyone should have expectations. So, if I were to ask you, what's something that you can control that can completely change your perspective even when you don't realize it exists? That answer would be expectations. And our very own expectations literally have the power to make us feel disappointed or pleasantly surprised. They can make us feel like we're failing or succeeding. They can make us feel unfulfilled or content. And so expectations can be really tricky, because some expectations we're conscious of, but some of them we are completely unaware that they even exist. And a lot of times we don't even know where they came from in the first place. When we have expectations that are not spoken, or something that literally is just ingrained in us, they can sneak up on us. And when they do, many times they cause conflict in our relationships. And so, if the expectation is there, you don't even know that it's there, you're unaware of it. But when your partner fails to meet an expectation, or you are at odds with one of your partner's expectations, it can cause conflict. And so, what are some ways that it can actually sneak up on you? Well, sometimes it's having to do with our family of origin. So we observe the way our parents and our grandparents navigate marriage and relationships, and something in us tells us that this is the way it is. This is the way it's supposed to be. So, what about expecting that finances will be handled by the husband? Because that's what you saw in your parents' relationship. That's what you saw in your grandparents' relationship. So you automatically, when you get married, say, okay, my husband is going to manage the finances, because that's a part of your family origin. And that's what you saw. And that was the culture of your family. And it's the environment that you grew up in. Now, what about societal influences? So we know that society has a lot to say about everything, from the way that we look, from how we parent our children, to the way we form relationships and what those relationships look, feel, and sound like. We know society plays a major role in determining and dictating and defining what is normal. Right. So sometimes our expectations are based on societal rules, things that we see out there in the world, and culture. Culture plays a major role. So, what about the expectation of having children? If you or your husband had no desire to have children, if you hold yourself to that expectation, it can be a burden that is so Heavy, way too heavy, significantly heavier than what you need to even carry. So when you recognize how these expectations originate and where they came from, then you should begin to experience a sense of freedom and letting them go. Another way that these expectations could creep up is in social media. So now, not only are we in this space of comparing ourselves to the neighbors or to our friends, to family members, now we are in a space where it's so easy to compare ourselves to millions of other people. Millions. People that we don't even know, strangers. And it's not healthy to do that because you can't be anyone but yourself. And a lot of times, what you're seeing on social media anyway is not always the truth. I'm not saying that there aren't people out there who are not happy, right? There are many people out there in relationships, they're doing well, they're happy, they're healthy, and what they're showing is the truth. But there are many out there who are not showing their real selves, their real lives, their real relationships. They're taking all these pictures on social media, smiling, looking like life is good. They're out there living their best life. And when the cameras are not rolling, when the selfie stick gets put down, you go to your corner, I go to mine. We don't talk, we don't interact, we don't do anything together. So it can be deceptive, but social media paints this picture of what our relationships are supposed to look like. All right. So another way it can creep up is with our personal desires and perceptions. Sometimes we have certain expectations simply because it's what you want or what, you perceive to be ideal. And these should be, I mean, I guess we could say these should be easier to adjust, but that is not always the case. So if you're someone who's high achieving or you're perfectionist, you might hold yourself to very, very high expectations, and not only expectations for yourself, but other people too. And this is a way perfectionists a lot of times get into trouble because that's their expectation for themselves, and they often will put that off on someone else when that may not be the other person's desire to be perfect. But then we put this pressure on other people to be perfect. So we have to be mindful of that. And again, that's that expectation, right? A lot of times it's unspoken and it's not something that's discussed, and it doesn't come up until the other person does not meet those expectations. So our expectations, they shape our perception of ourselves, of our partner, and our relationship. And so when we experience conflict, dissatisfaction, or miscommunication that is related to expectations, it can be really, really frustrating. So we have to get an understanding of where our relationship expectations come from, whether they're unspoken, ingrained, or we just one day decided that this is what it is. But we have to figure that out because we want to make sure that the expectations are always realistic expectations. Okay? So, hopefully that makes sense to you. If not, you'll let me know. You'll put your comments in the chat. You will put your questions there if you're not clear, if it doesn't make sense, but hopefully it does. So, as I said, our expectations, they have a huge impact on our perception, right? And it affects how we look at our partner and how we ultimately look at our relationships. So if we do not, again, get to the root of where these expectations came from, if we don't discuss these expectations with our partners and we don't ensure that they're realistic expectations, we're headed down a road of disappointment, and we're headed down a road of discord and dissatisfaction with the relationship. So, how do we manage these expectations? Well, we have to communicate. We have to share those expectations with our significant others and then be willing to make adjustments as needed. That's the part. See, many of us have gotten to that space where we communicate our expectations. We communicate them, but do we adjust them as needed? I'm just pausing for marination because I really, really want to know, are you willing to adjust your expectations? I'm not sure. because many times people don't want to adjust their expectations because they're afraid that if they adjust their expectations, that they're going to somehow miss out on something, that they're somehow going to lose a part of themselves, that somehow they're not being true to themselves if they adjust their expectations. Now, I'm not talking about settling, because that's a completely different ball game. I am not suggesting that you settle, but what I am saying is that sometimes we are expecting perfection, and we are expecting people to move the way we do, to think the way that we think, to feel the way that we feel. And that is not a realistic expectation. So, again, we have to be willing to adjust our expectations to accommodate the nature of who the person is that we're with. Because, again, we're not the same people. So, we do have to be willing to adjust those expectations. It's not easy. And I'm not trying to come off as if it's something that will just happen overnight, because it won't. It takes work, just like everything in a relationship. So there are times where you need to check your expectations. So how do you know when that needs to happen? I'm going to give you some reasons, or some signs, not reasons, signs, to let you know that you need to adjust your expectations. The first one is you're a perfectionist. So I already confessed. I already told you that that's me. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with holding yourself and others to high standards, but it has to be measured and laced with a dose of reality. Right. So when the expectations become impossible to meet, then we're setting ourselves up, as well as our relationships up, for disappointment and frustration. And then that can lead to your partner truly feeling discouraged. And so it's like, how can I possibly measure up? I can't. So then why even try? And that makes your partner want to tap out, throw in the towel, and quit. And the truth is, we're all human and we all make mistakes. So, what we have to do is work to recognize when we're being too hard on our spouses and when we're being too hard on ourselves. And then we have to focus on extending empathy, grace, and understanding. Because don't we get grace? And don't we want understanding? Don't we want empathy? And actually, don't we want grace? Of course we do. So, we have to be willing to extend that to our spouses as well. All right. So another sign is trying to have the ideal relationship, or the perfect relationship. You see how that perfectionism will creep up in different areas? So when it comes to the comparison game, the struggle is real. We got, again, social media, reality TV. We have these marriage relationship influencers that are constantly posting stuff and just literally overwhelming us and literally invading our consciousness. It's almost impossible not to feel like there's this ideal relationship image that we need to embody. So yeah, there's some pretty universal traits and skills, and things that we look for in healthy relationships, but there is no single model for the perfect marriage. And the truth is, the parties in the marriage need to be the ones that define what it looks, feels, and sound like. Not me, not someone on the outside. You guys get to decide that. So my role as a coach is to come in and to give you guys tips, tools, and strategies for how you can actually implement what your ideal view and ideal situation is for your marriage, not the perfect marriage, but your marriage. And you put energy into finding out what works for your relationship. And I'm there to empower you and give you the freedom and flexibility to do that, to cast down all of these um ideals that other people have imprinted in our minds, that this is what it's supposed to look like. You get to decide what it's supposed to look like. All right. All right. So the next sign that you might need to adjust your expectations is if you're being constantly critical, you're constantly disappointed, or you're constantly resentful. If the expectations are too high, they're probably not being met. And so when the expectations aren't met, what happens? We are in a state of discontentment. And that ultimately is going to wreak havoc on your relationship. So, what happens when you're being critical and when you get disappointed, you're resentful? You're looking at whether or not your spouse is checking all the boxes of your expectations. And that causes you many times to nitpick, to criticize, or just be unhappy and dissatisfied. And so that's going to bleed into other areas of your relationship and then leave your spouse feeling unappreciated and inadequate. So if you're the one who's on the receiving end of that and you are feeling unappreciated and inadequate, try to invite your spouse to take a step back and examine their role in creating these unmet expectations, but also you need to examine your own role in unmet expectations. What adjustments can be made on both sides that will help your partner meet your expectations? Because guess what? You both have them, and that's okay. But what adjustments can be made on yourself, because you can't change your spouse, you can only change yourself. So what adjustments can you make that will help your partner meet your expectations? I'm just saying, think about it. All right, so another way or another sign to look for that you may need to tweak or adjust your expectations are if you're relying on your spouse to make you happy. This is a big one, you guys. And so I'm going to have a truth moment here. I, at one season in my marriage, was totally 100% expecting my spouse to make me happy. And as long as I was doing that, I was unhappy because that's not his job. Just like it's not my job to make him happy. Can I influence his level of happiness? Can he influence my level of happiness? Absolutely. But it is not my job or my responsibility or his job or his responsibility to make me happy. It's not. And so the sooner I realized that, the happier I was, because I knew that, gosh, this is so unfair to expect from my spouse to play that role. It's a lot of weight to carry. And so we have to be able to find a sense of content and satisfaction within ourselves. And how do we do that? Manage our relationship expectations in a healthy way. Not only do you want them to be realistic, but you also want to practice clearly communicating them to your spouse instead of just expecting that they'll read your mind. You cannot hold someone accountable for something that they never knew was an expectation. That is the truth. And so it's the last sign is just making sure that you're not expecting too much. We talked about expectations that are too high, but it's not just about expecting too much. It's about expectations that are too low. Because what happens then is you if there's no expectations and you're not holding your partner accountable for anything, then you can become complacent and possibly fail to live up to your own potential as an individual and as a couple. So there has to be expectations. So I'm not saying there shouldn't be any, they just can't be too high. They can't be unreasonable and they shouldn't be too low. Because if disrespect is par for the course between you and your partner, it might be good to have a conversation about the baseline expectations of a healthy relationship. So still, you got to have them, but it needs to be balanced. It needs to be balanced. Okay. All right, you guys, we're going to take a quick break and then we will be right back and we will cover the rest of these marital expectations. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Firestarter Coaching Services proudly presents the next flame to be sparked. It's the Love Covers All Challenge. We're looking for all the flame seekers and keepers out there who want to spread love to themselves and others in 2023. We're starting this love movement because the truth is there's so much hatred in the world today. We can all use more love. This love movement will begin February 1st and will continue throughout the entire month. It includes a 28-day challenge that will stretch you to go to higher and deeper levels.
Not only are we inviting you to take the challenge, we're also asking you to share how love has covered you or how you have used love to cover someone else. Every day you will be given a task to complete. Do the task and then invite someone else to do it too. Please accept our personal invitation to take this 28-day challenge to ignite a firestorm of love and to show the world that love truly does cover all.
All right, you guys, welcome back. Welcome back. Please be sure to join the love movement. You just go over to my Instagram, Firecard. I can't talk. Fire Starter Coaching Services. You can just go over to my YouTube, or you can go over to my Instagram, preferably Instagram, and you'll be able to see the Love Covers All challenge. And I want you guys to join. Please tell all your family and friends, have them join the love movement as well. We're trying to spread love, people. Lord knows we need more of it. Oh man. So this lets you know it's been a really, really long day for me. All right. So we're jumping back into these relationship expectations and just talking about how it's totally fine to have expectations, but we just want to make sure that they're realistic and that we are not overwhelming our partners and our spouses with our expectations. And so, what we were talking about is managing the expectations. And the two ways you do that are to communicate the expectations and adjust them as needed. And how will you know if you need to adjust your expectations? I went through those signs with you to make sure that you understood exactly when you might need to manage those expectations. So where we ended on was ensuring that you know that it's not just about expecting too much, is that you can't expect too little either, because you're selling yourself short ultimately. So there are situations when the issue goes beyond just having low expectations. If there is abuse, if there's addiction, mental illness, or any other serious issue, then you have to consider seeking guidance from a trusted professional, because that goes beyond the scope of what you and your spouse may be able to handle together. And so then you need to reach out for help. We know that, again, we all have these expectations, and they affect our relationship in very complex ways. When you can understand that dissatisfaction and conflict are many times, more times than not, the result of unmet expectations, it actually can be a bit disconcerting for sure. And so the realization comes when you recognize that you have the power within yourself to feel happier and more satisfied in your relationship. When you recognize that, when you realize that the power is inside of you to change your situation, to feel happier, to have more satisfaction in your relationship, you will work harder to increase the awareness of your expectations, and not just being aware of them, because that's important too, but we have to learn to manage them. So, are you struggling to become aware or increase your awareness of your expectations? Are you having difficulty learning how to manage your expectations? Are you struggling with that? If so, reach out. This is what I'm here for. Schedule a heat call. You can call or text 727-213-8247. Again, that is 727-213-8247. And let me help you manage these expectations. Let me help you to recognize what those expectations are, because it is important for the health of your relationship, for your own individual health, but as well as for the relationship, and making sure that you guys both have realistic expectations and that you're not setting yourself up for disappointment. So if you don't walk away with anything else this evening, walk away with the fact that you cannot hold someone accountable for something that they never knew was an expectations. It is your job, it's your responsibility to communicate what your expectations are for your spouse. Likewise, I say it's also smart of you, thoughtful, careful, and considerate of you to go to your spouse and ask them what their expectations are of you in the relationship. And you guys have a mutual conversation, come to a mutual understanding about those expectations. All right. So hopefully you took away something from this evening. I want to say thank you so much for joining. Hey, Charlotte, thank you so much for watching. And oh, I do need to tell you guys, guess what? There's something coming up. And this is why you're supposed to connect with me on social media so you know everything that's happening. So there's going to be a virtual launch party on March the 5th. Okay, so here's the thing. I know many of you were not able to make it to the live event, which, by the way, it was awesome. Again, go to my social media, you'll see pictures from the event, but many of you couldn't make it. And so, guess what? I said it's not fair for you to have missed out on the fun because you had other obligations or responsibilities. So now, you can attend the virtual launch party from the comfort of your own home or from your car or from your friend's house or from work. Well, don't get in trouble at work, but you know what I'm saying. You can be wherever you are and you can still participate. I want you guys to come to the virtual party because there are going to be games and giveaways, just like from the live event. So make sure you are there Sunday, March the 5th, 3 p.m to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's going to be a party. So make sure you do not miss it. The same number that you call for the heat call is the same number where you call to RSVP for the live party, 727-213-8247. This is the same number that you will send a text to RSVP for the virtual launch party. If you have any questions, you can call or text that number. But for sure, I want you guys to be there. I don't want you to miss out because you missed the live event. I don't want you to miss the virtual one. So please mark your calendars. Sunday, March the 5th, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Please make sure you are there. Don't meet me there, beat me there. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. I'm here every Thursday, live, 7 p.m., different topics every single week. So I hope to see you next week. And of course, I want to see you on March the 5th in this virtual space. And if you have any questions or concern, again, reach out 727-213-8247. All right, you guys, have a great night, and I will catch you guys in the social media world. Have a great night. Bye.